Welcome to the dedication and unveiling ceremony for the new bronze statue in McLeod County Veterans Memorial Park in Hutchinson. The vision for this statue started about 10 years ago after a lifetime of listening to the memories of a member of what has been called the greatest generation. World War II resulted in the greatest loss of human life of any 6-year period in the history of the world. 85 million people died worldwide. The United States was the only country in World War II that fought in every military theater of that war. My father proudly served the U.S. Army in the Philippines and Tokyo Bay in World War II. Most of the stories he shared about his service are permanently etched in my memory. The character and values of this generation were shaped by a combination of experiences that may never be replicated in this country. This generation lived through the Great Depression era of the 1930s, where they learned to get by with nothing, to always be prepared for the worst, and to not take any blessing for granted. This austerity-hardened generation was then plunged into World War II. The Japanese and German commanders thought the American people to be soft and lacking resolve. However, most American men were already accustomed to the dirty, hard, physical work of farming and manual labor, of operating machinery, and the use of firearms. It was a relatively simple transition, if there is such a thing, for these men to become soldiers and apply the skills and character traits they had acquired on the farm to fighting in the hellhole that was World War II. The mothers, wives, sisters, and daughters replaced their men on the farms and in the weapons, aircraft, and shipbuilding factories. The entire nation working together toward the common goal of victory. This generation developed a unique set of values, including a dedication to faith and family, a tremendous work ethic, the ability to live below their means, the ability to be content with little, and most importantly for us, a deep sense of duty, sacrifice, and honor. This generation understood that freedom and responsibility are two sides of the same coin. They both loved their freedom and were willing to sacrifice to the point of giving up their lives to purchase that freedom. After his family, my father was probably most proud of his military service in World War II. This is the inspiration behind the statue. Lisa and I are fortunate to have a son who has the talent to create bronze art. This talent is the means of going from the inspiration to why we are here today. On this 75th anniversary of the end of World War II, this statue is dedicated to all U.S. military veterans, past, present, and future. Thank you for your service. There are a few people I would like to recognize and thank for their efforts in making this day possible. Matt Yanish, Hutchinson City Administrator, for helping us navigate the approval process. Casting Creations of Minnesota, its owner Wes Jones and his staff, for pouring the statue into bronze. The City of Hutchinson, Hutchinson City Council, and the Hutchinson Arts Commission for allowing us to have this statue on permanent display and for providing the beautiful landscaping. The Hutchinson Parks Department personnel, especially Sarah Whitty, Chris Hutton, Andy Bentz, and Randy Carter for the design and construction of the landscaping, and volunteers from the Chamber Leadership Program for the installation of the pavers. The McLeod County Veterans Park Board, especially their liaison Dave Skoog, for permission to place the statue on permanent display in this park. Dolph Moon, Hutchinson Director of Parks and Recreation, for his expertise, experience, and encouragement. And to our son John Camrath, the artist. Normally, we would have invited those I just mentioned and more to be present today to dedicate and unveil this statue. However, because of the current restrictions on the number of people that can gather, we regret not being able to share this moment with you in person. This being the beginning of the 2020 Memorial Day weekend, we invite all members of the public, especially our U.S. military veterans, to visit when you are able. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jonathan Kamrath, and I am the artist of this sculpture. I'm a lifelong resident of Hutchinson, son of Keith and Lisa Kamrath, and a graduate of Hutchinson High School. I studied sculpture and studio art at Gustavus Adolphus College and graduated in 2010. I then returned to Hutchinson to get married and start a family. I worked at a studio in Litchfield for about a year, making life-size police, fire, and military bronze memorials. Since then, I have been a software developer designing business solutions for companies across the United States. I was commissioned to create this piece by my parents. My dad had a vision years ago for this statue and was able to hire me to build it for him. So it is an honor to be here with you today to install a statue in my hometown, honoring my grandpa, honoring the veterans in my life, and honoring all veterans for their service and sacrifice. Though my dad was inspired years before, it was a year and 8 months ago, in September 2018, that we met with the Hutchinson Arts Commission and took the first step towards what we are celebrating here today. After getting initial approvals for the concept of a memorial, I began sculpting a 1-foot miniature wax version of this statue at the end of February 2019. Progress was slow, in part because we were adjusting to a new normal as we had added our third child in early January, but also because we wanted to get this right. Throughout the entire process, our overall idea of the statue remained consistent. We wanted to convey a realistic and authentic World War II soldier. I have always had a deep respect for those that have served and are currently serving in the armed forces. This stems from the fact that my mom was an Air Force nurse and both of my grandfathers served in the Army during World War II. My Grandpa Mike, my mom's dad, served in the European theater, while my Grandpa Ray, my dad's dad, served in the Pacific theater. He was especially proud of his time spent in the Army and the soldiers he fought alongside, and often he told stories about serving in the war. It was this patriotic spirit that led us to honor not only his service, but the service and sacrifice of all veterans. My parents and I discussed various poses such as saluting, at attention, or in action, but ultimately decided on a more natural stance. We wanted a candid moment of a soldier in World War II. We wanted to capture that moment in time as well, to make the details as accurate as possible and as true to history as we could. I researched World War II soldiers, equipment issued, and what would have been common at the time. For instance, I used a replica M1 Garand semi-automatic rifle and sling, which was standard issue for the infantry. The helmet was a new design for World War II. I found pictures online of standard issue boots and ammo pouches, and I was able to use actual equipment to sculpt from, in some cases like the canteen, first aid kit, and belt, which were my grandpa's. Even the age, height, and weight are specific to the time period, where the average World War II soldier was 26 years old, about 5 feet 9 inches tall, and 150 pounds. By July, I had finished the scale model of what the full-size statue would eventually look like, and we were ready to present to both the Arts Commission and the City Council for final approval. We were approved in September 2019 and began the work to turn a 1-foot statue into a life-size statue. The foundry, Casting Creations, was able to scan my wax miniature soldier and 3D print a life-size foam replica. The next step was to cover the foam with clay to add detail. Even with this foam armature underneath, I went through 25 pounds of clay to resculpt and recreate the details, pose, and proportions. By mid-December 2019, the clay work was complete and I was ready for Casting Creations to begin the process of turning a clay sculpture into a bronze statue. This is no small task. It is a multi-step process that involves making molds of the original, casting in wax and molten bronze, welding pieces back together, and applying the final patina. 2 months later, we had a completed bronze statue weighing 260 pounds that was ready for installation. We needed to wait for spring for the Parks Department to be able to begin to prep the site and create this beautiful walkway and the setting for the statue, which was installed a few days ago on Thursday. And here we are on Memorial Day weekend 2020, almost 2 years after beginning work on the statue and 75 years after the end of World War II. In summary, the unveiling of this statue is possible because of the cumulative efforts from many organizations and individuals. I would like to thank the Hutchinson Arts Commission, the McLeod County Veterans Park Board, the Hutchinson City Council, Dolph Moon and the Hutchinson Parks Department, Casting Creations Foundry in Howard Lake and their team. Wes Jones is the owner. Karen Broberg did wax and mold work. Gary Mack worked on the shell and the final patina, and Dan Schmieg did welding and metal work. I would like to thank my parents, Keith and Lisa Camrath, for commissioning this piece and encouraging me in my artistic pursuits. I'd also like to thank my wonderful and supportive wife, Rachel, who graciously picked up my slack with our household and 3 kids, Ruth, James, and Philip, while I worked on the statue. And of course, I want to thank all veterans for their sacrifice, bravery, and commitment to defend this nation and the freedoms we value. He now stands here in this beautiful setting. He is not afraid nor tense. He is comfortable but alert. He is relaxed but on guard. He is scanning the field, watching for any sign of danger. He surveys all that enter this sacred space, quietly commanding and guarding the respect and reverence that our veterans deserve. Thank you all for coming.
you.